Does it make sense to pull a character that you want to play as less as possible? Hello everyone, and welcome back to this corner of new Eridu. A new stunner, Trigger, has just been released, and she has triggered quite a lot of discussions. Which disc set is the best for her? Is she that much worse without her signature weapon? How does she differ from her 4-star competitor? I have had Trigger for a day now, and I tested her in 3 different teams accounting for many variables, such as weapon, disc set, teammates, and game modes, to help you to make the right decision. Let's start with a brief description of how Trigger plays. When you hold her basic attack, she enters a sniper stance, in which she accumulates purge. While off-field, every 3 seconds Trigger spends a little of this purge on attacks called Aftershock, dealing damage in days when you are attacking the enemy with any of the listed skills of your on-field agent. If you use Trigger's X Special or Ultimate, then for a brief period of time she deals Aftershock attacks without any delay and after any type of skill from your agent. Her core skill converts her crit rate into days dealt. All of that means the following. Trigger is somewhat easy to get to the battle ready state. Raise her core skill to at least level E, her basic attacks to the possible maximum, and equip a crit rate disc in slot 4. Then, in the beginning of the battle, hold basic until her purge is full, release to perform a finishing move, switch into your main agent, and for some time you can forget that she even exists, all the while she occasionally zigzags across the screen. So how is this different from Pulchra, the other off-field stunner that we have gotten for free this patch? Firstly, Trigger buffs the stun damage multiplier by 35% regardless of the stun state of the enemy. Pulchra's base kit starts providing full team buffs only at her M6. Secondly, Trigger's Aftershock attacks are considered to be basic attacks, while Pulchra's are specials. On its own it doesn't make any difference, but that's until we get to the disc sets. Generic Stunner's 4-piece set, Shockstar Disco, only increases days from basic attacks, dash attacks, and dodge counters. So it is an option for Trigger, but much less so for Pulchra. Lastly, Trigger requires a lot less field time. In total she can hold 100 purge, and she spends 3 for every Aftershock attack if you don't use her X Special or Ultimate. In practice, it means that during shorter fights you won't even spend the full purge. On the other hand, Pulchra at one time can only hold 6 charges of Aftershock attacks, and she spends them in short succession after the agent uses a special, which means that you want to switch into her every so often. Well, with current content being focused on buffing Aftershock attacks, let's see how these two fare against each other. I have tried first half of Shiyu defense with Soldier 11 team. This Shiyu defense buffs electric and fire attributes after any of your agents in the team perform an Aftershock attack, an unfortunate wasted opportunity that include physical agents in my opinion. Let's start with Pulchra. It is important to note that I have her at M0, her performance at M6 will be better. I found her stunning performance to be pretty good, but we should keep in mind that the boss is weak to the physical attribute, which helps Pulchra's days build-up. Starting with the Shadow Harmony disc set, it is the most recommended by the game since it buffs Aftershock attacks and increases various attributes after Aftershock is performed. I've tried this disc set with her signature box cutter, mine is at Overclock level 2, with a craftable weapon Precious Fossilized Core, and later switched to Protopunk disc set with an intention to buff the entire team, since I have to use assist with Pulchra to refill the charges of her Aftershocks anyway. The difference in performance has been negligible, so don't feel bad if you missed her signature on the banner, and use a disc set that is easier to farm for you. As for Trigger, here are the performances for with and without her signature weapon Spectral Gaze on Shadow Harmony disc set. If you remember that her Aftershock attacks are considered basics, well, that allows us to equip her with the Shockstar Disco set. Unsurprisingly, her performance gets 15% better with her signature weapon. But, weirdly enough, it is possible to deal too much days. Because of Shockstar Disco set, I got to the second stun on the boss much faster, and the decibels on Soldier 11 haven't been accumulated yet. That allowed the boss to waste more of my time, resulting in an overall worse performance. Now, we won't discard the Shockstar Disco set just yet, but it is something to note. Comparing Trigger to Pulchra, however, clearly shows that Trigger's extra damage multiplier does make a difference. Then, I took the same teams into Deadly Assault for a fight with Pompeii. For all the fights I have chosen a buff that gives extra crit damage and attack percent when aftershock is performed. Even after multiple tries, I couldn't 3-star this fight with Pulchra, even though I have done it before with Khaled as a stunner. But Trigger's inclusion made this fight a success every time, with Shockstar Disco and Shadow Harmony showing around the same performance on Fossilized core weapon, and the combination of Shockstar Disco with her signature coming first in score overall. With longer fight, getting extra days mattered, and it allowed me to properly fit the third stun. For a gritty attacker such as Soldier 11, Trigger's buff of extra damage came in handy. Defense shred on her weapon further pushed the score to about 20% higher. Another pretty pleasant observation, Trigger's electro application is low enough to not mess with the Inferno Metal bonus. Throughout the entire Deadly Assault fight, it is possible either not to apply shock at all, or only apply it once, which makes managing attacker stats a bit easier. Now let's check how well Trigger can replace a support compared to a stunner. For the second testing round, I have chosen Jane carry team as a base score to compare. Both Lucy and Tess are highly sought after in my teams, so freeing one of them was a goal I wanted to achieve with Trigger. On paper it sounded like Lucy would be the one to free the spot, since Jane-Seth Trigger combination keeps everyone's passives active and allows for an occasional disorder. Although without investing into Tess and Trigger's anomaly proficiency, disorder damage when applying shock on an assaulted enemy would be insignificant. In draining conditions, replacing Lucy with Trigger didn't yield as much result. Jane's assault value turned out to be lower than the base, even with a spectral gaze. Turns out Lucy is just that full of buffs. Replacing Tess, however, made for such a weird team. No one is happy to be here, but still performs at their best. With this surprising revelation, I took the teams into Deadly Assault to the same Pompeii fight. With a base score of about 21,600, replacing Lucy with signature wearing Trigger lowers that number to barely passing. Removing Trigger's signature at this point would make the performance of this team sink even further, so I have skipped this team in testing and went straight ahead with Jane Trigger Lucy team. Once again, these grumpy ladies performed pretty well, with Trigger's signature weapon pulling slightly better score. Frankly speaking, I am a little bit sad that I couldn't replace Lucy with Trigger in this team. One last crush on details that I haven't mentioned yet, both Seth and Trigger, excuse the tautology, Trigger quick assist to the squad member positioned before them, which makes the team even more awkward. Lastly, I wanted to try out Trigger with another potential field hunger agent, Yanagi. Usually I play her in mono Electro team with Seth, Rina and Fusion Compiler as a weapon. This team relies on stacking pen ratio on Yanagi to increase the damage output, which allows agents to ignore a percentage of the enemy's defense when attacking. How does that stack with Spectral Gaze defense reduction, you might ask? Well, it doesn't. Spectral Gaze reduction is applied first, and then pen ratio slashes the percentage of remaining defense, which means that you would be better off freeing the second slot in the team for an agent that buffs other damage multipliers, such as anomaly proficiency, attack, or all type damage. Let's test this theory in practice. In free training, base pen Yanagi team showed on average 300,000 disorder damage. Replacing Rina with Trigger both with her signature and without didn't move that number significantly. Moving on to Yanagi Trigger Rina teams, here we are getting something interesting. Comparing disorder number between runs with Trigger on her signature and without, we can actually see that the two different defense multipliers are in disagreement with each other. While in training conditions, I also wanted to check if replacing pen ratio setup with Trigger would be an option too. For that, I have switched Yanagi's build to Weapon Gemini and Freedom Blues, very general anomaly weapon and set. And here we can see that using Trigger with her signature can increase the team's damage output. Let's move on to practice. My boxing dummy for this team is Typhoon Destroyer in Deadly Assault. Base pen Yanagi team has gotten a score of 26,000. Replacing Seth for Trigger with craftable weapon has shown a slightly better result. Switching to pure anomaly Yanagi and removing Rina in favor of Trigger has also showed decent results, with signature wielding Trigger being on the same level as pen Yanagi, which is good news for anyone who hasn't gotten the Fusion Compiler yet. To sum it up, The difference in scores shows that any of the three supports can work as a duo just fine, and the Trigger doesn't need her signature to perform well in Yanagi teams. Should you pull for Trigger? In general, it seems like Trigger is in a bit of a difficult spot right now. If you like playing field-hungry attackers such as Soldier 0 or Soldier 11, then Trigger would be the best in slot for them, I think, for quite a while, and she just gets better with her signature and further mindscapes. But if you don't like these two, we don't know of any future attack type agents that might want to hog the field just like them. And also, we are unsure of other Able squad members that might or might not synergize with Trigger. For other attackers, specific stunners already exist, and Trigger doesn't bring anything too special to justify pulling for her. When it comes to anomaly teams, there is an argument to be made for mono Electro Yanagi, but the difference in performance isn't high enough for me to insist on pulling, especially since you can always play Disorder Yanagi with the second anomaly instead. So it seems like the value of Trigger will depend on future agents, making her reruns potentially more interesting than her debut. However, here is the secret to never regret pulling anyone. Pull whoever you like. If Trigger's design and personality are up your alley, then you will always find a spot for her, just like I would. On this note, I would like to thank you for watching this video. Please leave me a comment of your opinion on Trigger. I am very interested in checking out different thoughts on her application. If you have enjoyed this video, leave me a like, consider subscribing for more content such as this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!